So guys, this is the last thing I ever wanted to do a video on. But as this is an investing channel, we have to look at the impacts that Ukraine and Russia are now going to have on the markets as a whole. Because it's not only going to affect the housing market, it's going to affect banking, stocks, crypto, and even things like interest rates. And even this morning, I'd already seen my crypto portfolio absolutely decimated, as I'm sure many of you have as well. And then next up we have the S&P 500, which has entered a correction for the first time in 2 years, despite looking like it was never going to stop from going up and towards the right. And alongside this, we've now seen articles coming in thick and fast about how a war can potentially affect the UK housing market in regards to interest rates and even Russians purchasing properties in the priciest areas in the UK. And then we have oil prices setting new highs due to the Russian and Ukraine escalations. So how bad can this get? How bad will this get? Well, that's something that we're going to dive into today and discuss very briefly. And if you do appreciate anything I say in this video, or you want to help support this channel, then all I ask is you smash that like button. So let's begin by talking about Russia and Ukraine and what's going on, the sad state of affairs that we're seeing today. Now, rather than go into the ins and outs, I'm going to stay completely neutral here. I will link some articles down below which just explain how we've got to where we've got to. But I do want to talk about a few things. I want to talk firstly about NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, and then I want to talk about something called Article 5. Now, this is an alliance between countries to basically form partnerships and alliances from a political and military standpoint, and to just keep things peaceful and resolved professionally across the world. Now, the way in which it works in terms of decisions and consultations is that every day members from each country will consult and make decisions on security issues at various different levels across various different fields. And essentially, a NATO decision therefore is an expression of the collective will of all the 30 member countries, as decisions are then taken by consensus. Now, there is something important within this called Article 5, which essentially states the following. NATO is committed to the principle that an attack against one or several of its members is considered an attack against all. And to date, it's only actually been invoked once, and that was in response to 9/11 attacks in the United States in 2001. So the problem between the two countries, Ukraine and Russia, now is increasing, with Russia wanting to increase its influence and dominance within specific regions, and the Ukraine wanting to become its own independent country. And it also wanted to be part of NATO too. So why is Ukraine not part of NATO is probably a question you're now asking. You see, despite NATO being present and contributing towards NATO missions, it's still not an official member. The president even asked Joe Biden in 2020, "Mr. President, why are we not in NATO yet?" Which was a fair question, given they had actually asked to join via a formal process in 2008. But the issue is simple. Russia has previously asked for confirmation that Ukraine does not join NATO Defense Alliance. So why, you may be asking? Well, President Putin has repeatedly asked for assurance after he said that the West had broken a promise to not expand eastwards. Now, the Russian leader has previously claimed that the United States deceived the country and broke a 1990 promise by allowing states in Central and Eastern Europe to join NATO. And as Ukraine shares a border with Russia, as some of you people will know because your geography is probably a lot better than mine, Moscow wants to prevent it from joining NATO and thus bringing NATO into its own backyard. And Mr. Putin has also issued a warning to the West about the possibility of a full-scale war if Ukraine joined NATO and the West did not roll back its forces from Eastern Europe. So rather than continue to talk about this topic, because I'll be honest, it's quite depressing hearing about all the war stuff and the stuff that's going on today, let's talk about how this actually impacts the markets for those of you watching right now interested in investing. Oil and gas prices are rising, so we are seeing these surge in Europe, and even recently we've seen Germany halt its Nord Stream 2 pipeline. And Europe, as we know, gets almost 40% of its natural gas and 25% of its oil from Russia, so we're definitely going to see more problems there. And if we look further afield to the United States, they rely 90% on semiconductor grade neon supplies from Ukraine and 35% of its palladium from Russia. Now, some of those materials mentioned there, in case you're thinking what the hell are they, well, these are things that you and I use in our everyday products, like our cars, mobile phones, or even the camera I'm shooting with today. And the price of these are going to rise, and with that comes inflation. Now, inflation is already through the roof, but with the tensions between Russia and Ukraine increasing, even as I say this, it's only going to add more fuel to the fire. If prices of things like oil and gas continue to rise, we will see inflation driving up costs of things you and I purchase either on a daily, weekly, or monthly basis. And as a result of this, it's going to affect the financial markets. So if you're into stocks or if you're into crypto, now is probably not a great time, guys, to be looking at your portfolios. I did it this morning and I nearly threw up. You see, with the fear and lack of confidence now in the markets, the anticipation of prices continuing to rise even further, we're going to be seeing more sell-offs, and we saw some of that today as well. And you may be familiar with the term FUD, fear, uncertainty and depression. And right now, in the midst of these tensions, we are seeing all three of these. And when consumer confidence is low, the markets essentially show this. They are almost a great indicator of how human psychology is playing out on a daily basis, especially when you look at technical analysis. Now, what I've noticed when looking at the markets is we kind of know what's going to happen, and essentially that's priced in. For example, when we anticipated interest rates were going to rise, we saw changes in the markets a few days and weeks prior, but on the actual day we saw less movement. It was more the anticipation than the actual event. Essentially, it was already priced in. But with something like this, a true black swan event, we have seen ripples take place again today. And finally guys, the property market. I will do a separate video on this as I have been researching it, but one thing I know and you guys can be reassured about is there's far less volatility in property when compared with stocks and crypto. If tensions continue to escalate, we will likely see an impact. That's inevitable in my opinion, but hopefully not as severe as some of the market crashes we've seen today across stocks and crypto. Guys, it's not looking great out there, and my thoughts and prayers first and foremost go out to all those who will suffer with their lives, homes and health in the midst of this war. Some things are just far more important than our portfolios. Everything else in my opinion is secondary in terms of its importance, but for now let's just watch this space from an investment standpoint. And if you have only recently invested and you're seeing your portfolio down, just know that you're not alone. I'm in the exact same boat as are many other people. And with that, my friends, I'm going to leave the video here. This wasn't a video I was really looking forward to talking about, but I just thought I've been doing a lot of research on it in the last few weeks and days, and I thought I'd share it with you just so you have some insight into what's going on. So until next time guys, keep yourself safe and I'll see you on the next one.